Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy B Foster. Brian Foster is back in the building. You all thought y'all was gonna get rid of me forever? No, sir. No, ma'am. I promised some occasional pop-ins, so I'm doing an occasional pop-in. Chantel could not join us tonight. She is otherwise engaged. So you got your boy back in the building. Go ahead, clap it up out there. It's all right. It's all right. I'll take those flowers, baby. Hey, welcome to another episode of In the Zone Podcast. Once again, it's your boy, Brian Foster B. Foster. So happy to be back. Gina.
Yes.
While you have hosted before, I'm not sure we have ever co-hosted
I don't
before.
think so. I think this is the first. This is our inaugural.
I think that's true. I kind of crashed the day at the old studio where I said you could host it, and I came in and hosted from the booth.
Yeah. That's right. No, it was fun. That was good.
That was a good time.
That added some testosterone to all of our estrogen energy.
Well, apparently, every time I listen and see the chats, all the men's in the chat talking about enough testosterone, but they filling the chat with testosterone.
They are filling the chat.
So we'll see what they on today. Hey, what's going on, Shell? Good to see you. Hey, Nicole, we saw you on. Are you good? All right, y'all. Generally when I come on, I'm talking about some bullshit. But today we decided to have a little bit more of a serious conversation. As you know, in the zone, we will sometimes break it down. We will talk relationships. We will talk politics. We will talk religion. We will talk state of the black race. We'll talk about some more fuckery. We'll talk about sports. Fuckery is fun. But today we wanted to have a conversation that is touching a lot of us. Is affecting me personally in this moment is what made me think about it. As we're all celebrating our milestones, I just turned 50. Lots of my friends did. Folks I know are turning 40, 45, 55, whatever the case may be. As we get older, so do our parents. And they're celebrating milestones like 70, 80, 90, 100 if they, are blessed to see that. But as they get older and as we get older, the roles reverse in our life. And the caregivers, former, become the caregivees, and we become the caregivers. And it is a ball of wax, people. Anybody out there that is dealing with it, Ryan is still 50 fucking great. Yeah, if anybody out there that is dealing with it, you already know how difficult it can be. But also, there are some joyous moments in there and some funny things. So this will not be a completely depressing show.
No, because there are some funny things.
They have some funny things. We want to get some words of wisdom, some advice, some tips and tricks that might help you get through it. Right. That being said, I want to introduce our guest. Long-time viewer, first-time guest, I believe. My boy B Taylor's in the building. What's happening, baby?
What up? How you doing, man?
I'm good, baby.
Nice to meet you, Gene.
It is my pleasure.
Appreciate you joining us. Me and B go back to the U of I days. We won't talk about those in full here. We will not talk about that in full here. That's a separate show, people. And then on the line, her screen is, she's not there, but I see her texting in the chat. So maybe she went to go get a drink. My girl, you all have seen Nicole before. She was on, it's been a long time. She was on the P-Valley episode. She's been on a couple of other ones. My girl Nicole Gully is on. We will bring her in when she is prepared. And I think we have a couple other people joining us. But we will wait for them to get here. And in the meantime, in between time, we will start the convo. So, I want to start with everybody's personal stories. I think everybody that's on the show today, I kind of wanted to have the conversation with you all because we all have been affected or are being affected by this change and this paradigm shift in our relationship with our parents. So, B, as our guest, we'll let you start it off.
Just go first.
Yeah. You want Gina to go first? We can go first and then get you on.
Good.
Go on. Get it. Do your thing.
So my story is took care of my father. He went through dementia and it was pretty quick. Had a 80th birthday party for him in 2016. And I didn't notice anything wrong, but funny thing is he was telling other people that he didn't feel good. And I found out about that later. One day I got a call from him saying he needs to move. Early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said, why? He said, there's a fire in my apartment in Detroit. Now, he lives in Chapel. So I'm like, so I called his girlfriend. My dad was a player. He had like a girlfriend like 20 years younger than him.
Okay.
So I called her, she says, yeah, he called me with the same story. I'm like, all right, let me go over this. He was going, I'm thinking he dreaming, he coming out the dream, whatever. So that was kind of the start of it for me. Long story short, I ended up getting him to the doctor, and the doctor asked him to tell him the story about the fire, and Dad couldn't. He started talking about football or something. So the doctor was like, take his keys, he needs 24-hour care, and like walked out the door. I was like,
that's nice.
Yeah, it's like, what does that mean? So, yeah, that was 2016. Moved him in with me and my wife, and dementia is a little different because he was okay.
Physically, yeah.
It was the dementia that was the issue. So he dressed himself. He took his own medication. Fine. He was just a little out of it, and that's a little hard having him at the house when you're getting up at 2, 3 in the morning. You don't know what he's doing. He's walking around in his drawers or whatever, and trying to holler at all my wife's friends or sisters and everything. Every time the doorbell rings, you think it's for him. And one time he actually snuck out the house because I tried not to take his keys from him. I told him, you can't drive. Mm-hmm. And so I had the ding set on the alarm, so if the door opened, I would know. But one day I was on the phone, he snuck out and left. And so he ended up found him at Walmart down the street or whatever. That was his favorite. That was his parking lot pimping spot or whatever. So he knew about that.
Had he been driving? He drove?
He drove.
Okay.
He drove. He wouldn't answer his phone because he knew I was looking for him. So I said, let me go down there to Walmart. He lived in Chatham, like I said, but he didn't know this Walmart. But I'm like, I bet you he found the Walmart. So sure enough, he did. So anyway, I got him into adult daycare because he didn't have nothing to do during the day. Luckily, I was working from home. And it's funny because you find out about insurance. Not everybody's health insurance pays for what they call skilled nursing. Mm-hmm. So his insurance didn't pay for skilled nursing; it paid for whatever nursing is for adult daycare, which was fine. That's all he really needed. But I had, the bus had to come pick him up, take him, whatever. After that, he sort of declined a little bit to the point where we had to get him into a facility, and people think, if you put him in a facility, then you don't have nothing else to do. And from what I know, it's just as much work as having home because you got to be there every day, every other day, popping up all times of the day. Because my feeling is these people don't give. Can we curse on here? Absolutely. Yeah. People don't give a shit about your parents. They don't give a shit about. They just got a job. They're understaffed. Blah blah blah. So it's a whole. I don't want to take up too much time, but. So he was in the, first of all, he's in and out of rehab because of urinary tract infections. That's one thing with dementia. You'll realize that a lot of dementia signs can come from having UTIs, urinary tract infections.
I know that.
The doctor didn't even know that.
Okay.
Because I had to make the doctor give him a UTI test the very first time. Turned out he had one. That's when I got him to a different doctor after that. And you have dementia, more than likely they're not drinking a lot of water. Mm-hmm. They're not doing what they need to do. They're doing what they want to do. So they're not drinking a lot of water, and that exacerbates it or whatever. So there was some decline while he was in nursing home and different things like that, and he ended up passing in January 2018. Mm-hmm. But the experience is for me it was just it's what I got to do. I watched him take care of his sister and mother, and so not that I knew what to do, but everybody says, "Oh, you're such a good son," blah blah blah, and I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm a son? That's right. Like, I'm taking care of his kids, But it is daunting, in the moment you're just trying to put your head down and, do what you got to do. And that's what I did a lot. And a lot of my emotional whatever came after, I was able to, function and do whatever I had to do. Also going through some other stuff at work and things like that. So, but yeah, there's a lot of a lot of stuff you learn that you would never even think was, you know, part of the whole caregiving thing until you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So.
No, appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
We had somebody jump in. My cuz is in the room. JT, time. What's going on, lady?
Hey, how are you all?
We're good. You're gonna have to speak up a little bit.
How are you all? Can you hear me?
We can kind of sort of hear you. You got your mic on?
Yep.
Can you turn it all the way up?
That's up as far as it can go.
All right. You might have to, use your outside voice a little bit.
Oh no, I don't want to use my outside voice today. Hold on.
Oh, that's right, because you can't be waking the baby up.
They say they can hear it from.
Can you hear me?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what was happening last time.
All right, well, great. They can hear it. That's all we need to know. Boom. All right, Jay. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, so my story deals with me being a caregiver for my mother. She has dementia. Her dementia was triggered by the loss of her two sons. So I lost both of my brothers within 10 months. I'm sorry, 10 years and 10 months of each other. My first brother died of congestive heart failure in 2002. And then my brother Keith died of cancer in 2013. My mother's health began to decline around the age of 67. We noticed repetitiveness, her memories weren't, she would forget things. Like it would just be crazy. Like she would repeat herself 3 times, like within, I would say, the span of 6 hours. She would tell the same story over and over again. And that started actually when my brother got his cancer diagnosis in 2011. When he got his cancer diagnosis, we noticed that her care of him, she wanted to care for him. She wanted to retire early. She wanted to do all of these things, to assist him. But in the process, I in turn noticed repetitiveness and things like that. So I moved back home with my mom. I gave up my apartment to kind of support her as well as support my brother through his cancer ordeal. And when he passed away in February of 2013, that's when my mother just went on this rapid decline at that point. From February to that October, she was withdrawn, she was depressed, but at the same time, she kind of clung to myself and my 2 sisters. She wanted to be with us and go everywhere with us and do everything with us. She was my mom was always social, but she lost the ability to be social with her friends. She only wanted to do it with her kids. It was just, it was a sad situation. And to the point of, I got her, I had to get a neurologist involved because that's the only step you take when you notice the decline in someone's health. And that's what, the Alzheimer's Association recommends. And we also know that in my family, Alzheimer's runs pretty heavily, especially with the women in my family. So we kind of had an idea that that's where she was headed, that it was dementia, but we just didn't know her decline was going to be so soon. So we got her diagnosed, and it seemed like every year for the first 3 years, it was just rapid. They give you this whole questionnaire. When you go to a neurologist, they do the test. And I forget what the test is called, but they give you a series of 50 some odd questions. Some of them are 75 questions. And every year they do this test on them and they check to see how fast you're declining. What can't you remember? It's they tell you, put the hands at 2:30 on the clock, drop them. Put the hands on the clock. Remember these 3 words: tree, bottle, spoon. And you have to repeat those back to them later in their assessment. And it seemed like my mother could remember when we first went in, it was like 60 questions. She was great. The next year, it went to like 30 questions she could only answer. And that following year was like 18 questions that she could answer. So we knew her dementia was advancing. My mom today is now at a place where she speaks, but it's simple words. It's, the basic words. It's hello, goodbye, yes, no. She smiles. She knows who I am. Like when she sees me, she says, "That's my baby." I say, "Hey, mom, who am I?" "Oh, my baby." She can acknowledge you if you're committed to her long-term memory. Anything short-term memory, she does not remember. Like her brain does a reset every 30 seconds, pretty much. And I cared for her. She lived with me. I lived with her. And it got to a point where between my work-life balance, I couldn't keep it up. And my sister, my older sister, Karen, cared for my grandmother who was going through dementia. And my grandmother just passed away at 99 in July. And my sister Michelle had her two sons that were going, that were of school age, and she had to balance out her work life and her family life and raise her two boys. So I just thought it was only fitting at that time that I cared for mom because I didn't have any children. And so I took her on as like my child. And yeah, it got to a point where I couldn't do it either. It's like they become combative because they remember they're your parents and you are their child. And yeah, it just became hard. So I had to put her into a facility. And it was unfortunate. And I agree to what you were saying earlier. They don't care for your family as well as you could, but you have to, for me, I had to kind of make peace with it's the best situation, because also one of my mother's symptoms with her dementia was that she would walk constantly. So much to the point where, many of you know on this podcast, if you follow and, are friends of mine, that my mother has walked off from home, and was gone for maybe half a day before she was located. It's just, if you're working, you need 24-hour care 7 days a week. You do. I couldn't give that to my mother, and I was doing her disservice by keeping her in my home living with me. As much as I, kept her protected, shielded, gave her love, and became her parent, I could never provide around the clock care, because at some point, you as a caregiver, you have to sleep. You have to eat. You have to do things for yourself. And it's not a selfish thing. It's a real thing. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. So that's my story pretty much in a
Hey, cuz,
bottle.
you mind me elaborating on that one piece about your mom and the walking?
Absolutely.
So, but I want to say this because anybody that watches or knows me well knows I'm not ultra religious or anything, but this is where I know God exists.
Mm-hmm.
Auntie Jatan's mom wandered off from the house. She was looking for her for half a day. Long story short, she winds up at one of our friends' houses. She had walked to the store, the grocery store. He happened to live around the store. Okay. She was going up and down the block ringing doorbells because I think at one point she had lived around there, or had family that lived around there. And she wound up, everybody else, this weird old woman's ringing my doorbell, right? Not answering the door. My boy's wife opens the door, concerned about her. My boy comes home, and she calls him, and she's like, "Oh, we got this woman, clearly, isn't well." But he comes home, he's like, "Wait a minute, I know. She looks familiar." Jatan, they figure out Jatan's number. Jatan comes to pick her up, and as soon as she sees my boy, it's just like emotions, because she could have wound up anywhere, but she wound up at a friend's doorstep.
God took her to his door because she had never been in his house ever. It's just she grew up, on 39. Let's just say that. And she was just walking up and down the street.
So I got a walking story. God took my father to Burger King. Oh. So in the
I
facility.
don't know if we ever hear that again. I don't know if we ever hear somebody
Right.
gossip, somebody's anybody in the Burger King, but go ahead.
So my father's facility was about 4 blocks from a Burger King in South Holland. And so the facility is locked down except for one door where there's a desk where somebody sits so nobody can get past them without seeing them. And they lock it down at 8 o'clock. Dad was out of it, but he had the wherewithal to know when that person was gone, he could come down the back stairs and go past that desk and go out the door. Evidently, that's what happened. And they said the alarm went off, and they went looking. They went to his room to look for him. I'm like, why the alarm is off? Why are you going to his room to look for him?
Clearly
Go
he's not
outside.
there.
Right, you know. So, and Dad walked slow. So I don't know how he made it 4 blocks to Burger King. He
What
got
was
to
he
Burger
wearing?
King. He was wearing. I saw the security. He had just his normal khakis and a white
but he
jacket.
was dressed.
He was dressed. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, that's one they dressed. Anyway, so he went to Burger King and they realized something was wrong, so they called the police, and the police figured that he was from there, so they brought him back. So yeah, that's what God took my dad. So
Yeah,
worked out. So
they'll do it.
yeah.
And we have another guest that has joined us. Veronica is on. Hey, Veronica, how you doing? Did we freeze? Did she freeze?
I can't hear her.
I think she might have froze.
I think she did too.
Yeah, I think she might have froze. Let's see if she clicks back in. And in the meantime, Gina.
So, my situation, I actually feel kind of fortunate. And my mother, 13, 14 years ago, was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and didn't tell me for a while. Finally told me. And then it was essentially, then I had to then step in, because she and my dad were still together, but my father is a lot older than her. Like, my father is kind of the age of a lot of people's grandfathers. So I'll get to that in a second. But so for her, it was like a 10-month diagnosis to death situation. But it was just going back and forth. And at the time, my parents lived about 15, 20 minutes away from me. I worked downtown. So it was like just trailing back and forth. And then I got to a point where, I couldn't trust her, right? And that was the thing that was weird about it. It was like, I would say, Mom, are you eating? And she would hide her food like an anorexic teenager to pretend as if she's eating. And I knew she wasn't, but she didn't want to disappoint me. But at the same time, she didn't have an appetite. And she knew, and she lost so much weight. But anyway, so my whole thing at the time was like, all right, I got to make sure that my father doesn't crumble under the pressure of this. So I had to try and take it on because she couldn't be left alone. So then she passed away. And so then my father wanted to move. And I had to be heavy-handed with him because I'm like, you're not getting younger. And he was in his 80s. And so I basically forced him to move across the street from my house. And at the time, my father was really he was in his 80s, but my dad's a musician. So he was still gigging. He was still going out. He's like, you just want to spy on me. And I'm like, no, I promise you a day will come when you being across the street is going to be very important. And it's the best decision. If I've never made a good decision, it was that one. Because now my father is 96 years old. He lives across the street. He lives by himself. He cooks for himself every single day. I bring him all of his food. I bring everything to him. I basically have him in bubble wrap. But, so
Sorry, you said 97?
he's 96. Yeah.
Right.
And he and I actually have a podcast. But, I'm fortunate, but I'm still on a day-to-day basis, I am his caregiver. Like I am his lifeblood to the world. Like I bring him all of his food, I bring him his mail, I make sure that he is, he's got his newspaper every day. And I swear a couple things, we can get into advice on this later, but even though I am a caregiver on a daily basis and have been for a good while now, I consider myself lucky. And it's funny because we wanted a new house, right? So my fiance and I live across the street, and we ended up buying the lot next door to my dad's house so that we can kind of all stay in the same proximity. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. Wow. So yeah, so that's that story. So I am lucky. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Veronica, I think we got you back. There you go.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I cannot complain. Everybody, this is Veronica. Veronica is also a newbie to the show. First time zoner. Appreciate it. And this is actually our first time formally meeting. So a pleasure to meet you. Any story personal story you want to share or?
Sure. on your end?
Yeah, we got you.
So I'm a caregiver for my mom, and I've been a caregiver for 9 years now. My caregiver journey started, I was living in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for like 10 years, and I would come home and visit my mom and my grandmother. And my mom was taking care of my grandmother at the time, and my grandmother had Alzheimer's. And so I kind of realized that my mom was struggling taking care of my grandmother, just not really on top of things with her. And so at that point, I moved from Chicago. I left my job, left my career, social life, everything, and moved back home to Dallas to help my mom take care of my grandmother. And actually, that story is actually interesting because what triggered me to do that was my grandmother was with a family member while my mom was at work. The family member called my mom and was like, my grandmother was having, I guess we can call it an episode. She was getting violent. She was getting aggressive. My mom, rushes to the house and to try to help the situation. And my grandmother got violent with my mom, which was the first time she had ever done that. My grandmother ends up having a seizure. They call an ambulance, and my mom calls me in Chicago while she's following the ambulance to the hospital. So talking to my mom over the next 24 hours, she has no grasp of the situation. And so I end up flying home, helping out with that, and realizing just how bad things were. And so that's when I decided to move home. But all that to say, a year later, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's as well. So I ended up taking care of both of them for like 4 years. My grandmother passed in 2017. And so now it's just my full-time caregiver for my mom who has Alzheimer's.
Wow. That's a lot. That is a lot.
That's a whole lot.
Wow. But yeah, we'll dive more of that. I don't know, Nicole. I saw you pop in, pop out. I'm not sure if you're there.
I'm here.
Okay.
My camera's just off. Yeah, the little lady is wandering around. So.
Oh, okay. I got you. Part of the caregiving process, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, everybody. As I mentioned, Nicole, a vet of the show, is here. Go ahead, Nick. Tell us your story.
I'm actually this caregiving is new. We've been doing it about 4 months now. My mother has dementia. She's still in denial, but it's literally we abruptly moved her from Chicago to Atlanta. So change does not sit well with them. She is not happy. All she wants to do is go home. And it just happened so fast. Just in March, we were talking about her buying a house down here in a 55 plus community. And now in July, I had to rip her from Chicago. It's been extremely hard for me because I'm an only child, and it's happening right before my eyes. And I'm trying to be a caregiver and a daughter. And sometimes that is not an easy thing to. I'm still trying to accept my new mother because my old mother is gone, and I'm struggling big time with that. So I would say the last 3 months I've been functioning on 3 gears: anger, sadness, and frustration. Because it's also new, the repetitiveness, and you're trying to have patience, and you're tending to your marriage, you're working, and it's just hit me all at one time. I'm fortunate that my husband, Michael, is so supportive, so good with her. Or I would be an institution. We wouldn't even be talking about her being in the institution. It would be me in the institution. And like I said, the hardest part is seeing her just decline. And she decline, and she knows something is wrong. It's heartbreaking when she touches her head and says, "I'm a dummy. I'm tired of being a dummy." And she's not.
Yeah, she is not. She is not.
I'm sorry.
No.
No.
It's just the hardest job I've ever had to do. And I miss her. And I see her looking at me confused and not really sure who I am. But she knows this lady, as she say, this nice lady loves me. And as I've been trying to anticipate everything, when it actually happens, it still hurts. And then it's this meanness. And she treats my cousin and I, she would cuss us out, but she don't cuss our husbands out. She listens to them. So you have to also remind yourself it's the disease, but those words still hurt.
Yeah.
I hear you, Nicole. Really fast on my end, and we're gonna dive into some of what you were talking about, Nicole. It's I relate. My mother's been recently diagnosed with dementia. I've recently moved her out of her place and put her in a senior home, a senior facility that has mental health, memory care. Yeah, memory. Thank you. And you're right. It's the fact that you have them, but you don't have them. Yeah, they're not who they were. And I find myself often, and like I said, I'm gonna switch gears into this. Some of the struggles. It's amazing how not patient I can be sometimes, because in my head she's still. In my head it's like, oh, you know better. You know this. You know this. Why are you asking me this? And I have to always self-check and be like, no, she doesn't. She doesn't know. Right. She absolutely does not know. She's not telling me this for the 15th time today because she wants to, because she doesn't remember that she told me the other 14. We went out to breakfast the other day, and it's just amazing how more patient kids can be. We're out at breakfast, and she's asking my daughter and my son the same stuff over and over, and they're answering it like she never asked it. And I'm just like, I need to be more like that.
Because kids are repetitive too.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they're like,
okay, all right, well, yeah, maybe she didn't hear the first time. Maybe I didn't tell her.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's tough, Nicole. I get it, but I do want to, and thank everybody for sharing it. I really do appreciate it. So let's talk about the struggles, right? What have been your largest, or were your largest struggles when faced with these life-altering changes with our parents? Was it the finances? Was it managing your emotions? Was it feeling helpless? Was it family not understanding what was going on and telling you, because I'm getting
all of the above.
Right? Family telling you shit. You like, shut up. You don't even know what's... Shut up.
All of that.
All of the above.
So Jen, I want to start. What has been in your in losing your mom and dealing with your dad? What was the largest struggle?
So really, the overarching struggle with both of them, and it started with my mother, who was sick first, was like the person and the people who have been the most, like the biggest rocks in your life, the people that you could look to for advice, and the people who would take care of everything for you, are suddenly like not the people you knew, or suddenly the people that are looking to you for that advice. And so it's like a loss of stability in a really disturbing way, because it's, now you're that person. Like, you're the person that they look to, they rely upon, and they will also lie to you. They will, and that's kind of the funny part.
Absolutely.
They will lie
Absolutely.
to you. And then I felt bad for them having to deal with me as a child, because I would lie to them.
Right.
But they would lie. I mean, they will just tell you whatever, because, and it comes from a place of them not wanting you to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And being an only child, and so I have friends that have siblings, and they say, oh, it must be so hard on you to be an only child. I'd almost rather, because I have friends that have deadbeat siblings who don't contribute, and I would almost rather know it's all me than to have other people that I would rely on who don't follow through. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole tangle, and just thinking that your life is really not yours, because you can't, like, I can't pick up and go someplace for a month. I can't do it. Like I can't, I've always got like home base to consider. So it's a whole lot.
You know what? I cannot tell you how many people I've run into who have multiple siblings, but they're the only one taking care of the parent.
Right.
And the other siblings won't sign POAs. They won't.
They won't be
You're
involved.
not going to help me take care of them, but you won't.
But you want to
sign
relinquish
POAs.
rights.
Right.
Yeah. It's. I don't get it.
Yeah, I have a half sister by my dad's first marriage. We're both technically only children, and I have seen you more than I've seen her in the last. When she lives in California, whatever. I know, but it's not. And it's not that she doesn't really want to, but it's just that she's not involved. I mean, she doesn't have decision making. But I'm my mother's only child, so I consider myself an only child. But she's not useful. But anyway,
Tell what you kind of chimed up. But anything else you wanted to put in there?
Like
what was your biggest struggle?
All of that, man. All of that. First thing was finding a place for him. Like I said, with your insurance, not all insurance pays for skilled nursing, and if you don't have that, you got to rely on Social Security and savings, pension and all that. So, but there's places that charge $5,000-$6,000 a month. Good luck if you can get into those. There's ones that will all the way down to the ones that you gotta give all your money to the government and let they take your house, they take everything, and they put you in there.
you can't have assets.
Yeah. So luckily, my father had enough that we can get him into a decent place. Well, what I thought was a decent place, but decent enough for what and I went through that whole, kind of guilt thing. But again, this is what was best for him, because if he didn't have dementia, if he was just bedridden, that'd be different.
Right.
We could take care of him.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. So so financially, emotionally, I mean, like I said, my mother had already passed, and I've been through that traumatic thing, and my niece too. So this was just in the beginning. This was this is easy. I've been through traumatic shit. This is okay. He got dementia. Although it came out of nowhere, and everybody who knew my father was like, dementia? Wow, he's just a shit talker,
Right.
And it's funny because when the doctor came to me, he told me, he said, your father probably had this a while ago, but he talked so much shit, that you didn't recognize it, and because a lot of times you say shit, but what are you talking about? Whatever, you just blow it off. So sometimes you feel the guilt of not recognizing the signs early. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right.
And you go back in time, like, remember that time Dad put that Wendy's burger in the foil wrap in the microwave?
Yeah.
And you had to go turn it off real quick?
Oh my God.
Oh. Remember you asked? Because when he was taking care of my grandmother, I used to take him the paper every Sunday when I went to go visit. And I noticed the paper stack, and I said, read the papers? And he says, no, all my friends, I'm tired of reading obituary. I don't see all my friends in obituary. And I was like, okay.
I get that.
Then I look back, and I'm like,
yeah,
words wasn't making sense.
Yeah.
That's why he stopped reading the paper.
Yeah.
So,
not to cut you off, brother, because I just want to 100% co-sign that, right? Like, I think that's the biggest struggle I got going right now, is that I think other people saw it and I know for a fact my mother-in-law saw it and was trying to tip me off, but I was in such denial about it, right? Like, my mom, she's good. Yeah, she's good. I just talked to her. She's
She'll be fine.
She's fine.
Right.
She's all good. I just had dinner with her.
Vitamins. She'll be all right.
And just, as you say, you look back on it and you clearly see it, but you just let it go over your head because in my case, because I wanted to.
Yeah. And my father I think he was also good at playing a role too, because other family members would come when I had to leave and, stay with him or whatever. He'd be like, yeah, you don't seem too bad. I'm like, yeah, he putting on for you. You know what I'm saying? He had enough to know, this. I think, honestly, he knew, because one day he said that we was riding in the car. He says, yeah, stuff just ain't making sense to me no more,
Right.
And he just said that out the blue, But in his case, it was an up and down. It wasn't a steady decline. It would be, I remember I went to go get him one time in a convertible one day, and the sun was shining, and he just took a deep breath. It was like, hey, son, how you doing today? Like, and when he said it, I was like, who the hell is, like that. It was like, that was last for a good 30 minutes. We had a conversation. Like, he's back,
Right.
and then he wasn't.
Yeah.
So the whole emotional toll is. And when this was all over, I had a conversation with my older cousin, and she says, you did a lot for your father. I'm like, I did what I was supposed to do. Blah, blah. She says, I know you're tired. I'm like, I did what I did. I got to.
Because it becomes your normal.
She says, Bartell, you did a lot. And the second time she said it, I felt this like rush of like fatigue, come over me, and it was like, okay, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, because you're just powering through.
Yeah, right. And when it's over, you still in that same mode. Until somebody tell you hit that wall, and it's like, But yeah, financially, emotionally. What was the third one you mentioned?
Sometimes I be saying stuff.
Right.
Feeling of helplessness.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all. It's all encompassing. If you told me my father would have got dementia, I'd have been like, you crazy. Dementia? What? And because he was a shit talker, he was a financial planner, and all this stuff, man, and just but in going through this, and we can talk about this later, but doing my research, because my grandmother got dementia when she was like 97 by the time she had stopped talking. She knew who we were, whatever. So I'm thinking, okay, my grandmother got it, my father got it. Hold up, need to see what this is about,
Mm-hmm.
So you start researching about different chemicals and medications you take that stretch out your veins, and it's the collapsing of the veins in the brain that cause dementia and all this stuff, blah blah. And so that whole search led me to my veganism, actually, and going through different stuff like that, and it's a whole learning experience that has changed my definitely changed my lifestyle, to the point where they say the aluminum in your deodorant can cause I'll stop
take
using
that out.
And so using salt sticks now or whatever.
As long as you smell good.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
I'm over here.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're not bad.
Oh,
You're not
okay.
bad.
All right.
You're not bad.
So you smoke all the way over there. So yeah. So all that financially, emotionally, feeling helpless. But it's. I hate to say we're all talking about dementia, but there's stuff other than dementia and caregiving. But we're kind of dementia heavy here.
It's
so
just general old age.
Yeah, and it was a blessing for me to be able to take care of my father, no matter what I went through. That's the way I see it, because he could have just,
Right.
like my mother did, and
Right.
that was a whole different thing. So
Yeah, I consider it a privilege to take care of my father, honestly.
Yeah.
With the way he's,
I wish I could have done more and had him with me and shared things during that time. It was funny because I real quick, I was trying to do things to keep his memory going. So I found my father. I remember back when I was a kid, he had a video camera everywhere he went. People got tired of seeing my father with a damn video camera.
That's great.
So I found this box, and I thought it was cassette tapes. And I'm like, what is it? And I look close, these ain't, because these are 8mm.
Mm-hmm.
40 different ones. Funerals, weddings, all
Nice.
kinds of stuff. So of course they don't make those anymore, those players. So I had to go to a pawn shop, buy a 8mm video camera, and buy this thing where you can digitally put on the TV. So I'll start playing the tapes. So I go to the facility and play the tapes for him. I'd be like, yeah, cousin, blah blah blah. And he would see the people on TV and know who they were or whatever. So that's all. I'm just glad that he passed before he forgot who I was.
Okay.
He got to the point where my wife was popcorn, because the last time he was home, she made a popcorn, and that's how I related to her. So he would see her.
He would really call
Yeah,
me popcorn.
he called it popcorn, right,
Okay.
right. But he knew who I was, and I think if it had gotten to that point, it would be a lot, a lot
Okay.
worse.
Now, how old was he when he passed away?
He passed exactly 1 month before his 82nd
Okay.
birthday.
Veronica, I want to bring you back in here. What are your biggest pain points, struggle, source of contention with yourself?
So I would say right now finance, because can you hear me? Can you hear me? Something's happening. I can't hear y'all anymore though.
That's where the echo comes.
Now I know. We're gonna no, you're good. We just mute ourselves so we can get rid of echo.
No, I was going to say finances. And so the thing about finances is a lot, and I know other caregivers who have left their careers like I did. And so I've had a whole career in Chicago and I left and moved back here. And so I have not really worked full time over this caregiving time. So I do freelancing, I do graphic design, I do web design. There's nothing like a steady paycheck, steady benefits, and all of those things. So definitely finances. And then finances for caring for your loved one, because it's not cheap to get a sitter. Like you get a sitter through an agency, and minimum is $25 an hour. So add that up, and you're talking about several $100s a week for caregiving. I mean up to into the thousands. So you look at finances in that way. You look at finances, and you were talking about a facility. So you were saying, $5,000, $7,000 a month, even more. When you talk about, memory care and those sorts of things, you're talking about $10,000 a month. Who has that money out of pocket to pay for a facility? So that's why a lot of people like me end up keeping our loved ones at home. My grandmother was at home on home hospice for 2 years, and she passed away at home. And so I cared for her all the way to the end, because I didn't want her to go to a facility, but also we just couldn't afford it. I think the other thing you talked about was just like the helplessness and not really having support, from immediate family and things like that. I think that's also a big thing. And so I started a nonprofit, and I host a support group through my nonprofit. So I talk to a lot of caregivers, and I talk to a lot of caregivers who are young and who are, late 30s, early 40s, and going through this alone, be it because they're an only child or be it because they just don't have siblings to help. So like the helplessness is a real thing, and that affects mental health. So it's a lot. It's definitely, a lot, but those are two things that I wanted to touch on.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting is one of my friends made a comment on my page about our, as a community, lack of wanting to put our people in facilities.
Yeah.
And there's a variety of reasons for that. But and the struggle, right, we have internally when, and financially, when it comes to a point that you're incapable of doing what you need to do at home, but maybe you can't afford, as you mentioned, Veronica, to put them anywhere else. So you got to figure that out. And it's a stigma. And I know BTL had some bad experience. I know lots of us have. But just the experience, like the fear that nobody is going to take care of them like you are, or that they're going to be ill taken care of. Not taken care of as well as you would, but it's ill taken care of in facilities. So it's this conundrum that you wrestle with, and this guilt you feel when you eventually, if you have the resources and the wherewithal to do it, right. The guilt you feel for it. Jatan, I want to bring you back in.
Yes.
So your biggest struggles, pain points, with all of this.
There was something. It was me trying to figure out if I was doing the right thing by even first signing up to be my mom's caregiver. If I was being fair to my siblings, by stepping in, making all of the decisions, and kind of like leaving them to their own lives. As I mentioned, like my oldest sister had my grandmother and was taking care of her while she was going through her bout with dementia. And then my other sister, had her growing boys and her husband. And, it's like they're teenagers, so they're already a headache for her. Did I want to thrust more of that onto her? And for me, I was single, and then I was dating, I was in a relationship, and then wasn't, but I had the most time, is what I felt like, the most time to dedicate towards my mom. I've had guilt for having to make the decision to put her in a facility. They don't give you or they don't give your loved ones the best of care. They never will, because let's get this straight. No one's ever going to love your family member like you. No one's ever going to, they're never going to love your mother or your father or give them that love that you would give them. Like, everybody who knows me knows, like, I'm a mother's cub. Like, I will maul somebody about my mother. Everybody knows just our relationship, how close we are. And my mother's was close like that with all of her children. Financially, it is hard. It's hard. We didn't plan for my mother to ever come down like with this. Even though it runs in our family, we thought she was going to fight it because my mother is so strong. She stayed social. She stayed active. We never thought that trauma would bring her to that point to where she is today. And it is difficult seeing a woman who just is so vibrant and full of life and so loving now in this position. It goes to like what Nicole was saying earlier in her conversation. It's a new mom, and it is the disease. And I had to learn patience with her. It was the hardest thing. It's like, I'm so used to my mother leading the charge for me, and for me to have to step up and lead the charge for her, and then for her sometimes to be combative and not want to follow was difficult. My mother never was a person who, she didn't have to whoop us or anything like that. My mother could just have a stern talking with us and get us back in line. She never was verbally abusive or any of that. But when my mother began to like brace up and want to hit me and become violent with me, that broke my spirit, because that's not the mom I knew. And I knew at that point, no one could take care of her, because if she's doing this to me, she's going to do this to other loved ones. It's just something that is beyond our control at that point. She's been on medication. We had to completely strip her of the medication she was given, because one had her catatonic, where she was not functioning at all. She was bedridden, so she started to lose weight. I mean, there are all sorts of struggles you go through with this. And it never, I hate to say this, it's never going to end until, like, I hate to say it, but until they leave us. We're going to do it.
No, you're right. You are 100% right. And that's the unfortunate truth of it. Yeah. Nicole, I want to bring you back in.
Since it's so early for us, we haven't hit the financial struggle. It's the emotional struggle. Example, yesterday was a horrible day for my mother and I. And I got angry because she's being so defiant. But I also realized that anger was masking the grief of what I was feeling. Because I saw some more decline. And it's like, I have to accept this. And then you feel guilty if you yell. You feel guilty because I was away from her. I keep saying, maybe if I would have made her come down here sooner, I could have stayed on top of things. I feel guilty if I laugh because she's not the person she used to be. Why should I have fun?
Yeah.
I have separation anxiety because I feel like, what if I miss her last breath? What I have not come to is saying it's a privilege. Like, I don't mind taking care of my mother. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But it's not a privilege to watch her die in front of me. It's not a privilege when people say, at least she's still here, which is a trigger now, because she's not. It's not a privilege to find deep down in me to love a person who can be so cruel to me, but I know she loves me. So I'm not there yet. So my biggest struggle right now is the emotional.
I'll jump in and say, I consider it a privilege to take care of my father largely because he took great care of me as a child. And I'm grateful for so many things. I'm grateful that we haven't had financial struggles and I'm able to really do with him what I would like. Like I have him in a place where, it's funny when we bought the place across the street from my house. His joke was that, oh, we could flip it and we could, I'm like, flip it? He goes, like, where are you going to live? And he's like, senior living. I'm like, oh, this is your senior living, sir. You ain't moving, so don't even try it. Like, this is where you're going to be, and it's large enough so that if the caretaker needs to move in, then that's what we're going to do.
Dad's like, but ain't no holes over here.
Hey, I told you he's a musician, right? Which is not. But, the thing that's really kind of taxing about it is that, you have to alter your life dramatically. Like I always, every time, we get ready to travel, it's like this, anxiety because my father is of an advanced age. And every time I call him during the day, every single day, and he answers the phone, it's a good day, right? Yeah. Because that means he's alive. And which this sounds crazy, but he's 96 years old. And it's going to be one day, but every day I hope it's not that day. Mm-hmm. Right. And so every single day, that is the emotion when I call him. And so that, I'm sure, takes a toll on my person, right, on my body. It takes a toll on me. It takes a toll on my relationship. It takes a toll on everything. But it's got to be my primary concern because he can't take care of himself, really. Like, I have to be the person that takes care of him. So therefore, because, and I feel a duty as a daughter to do that. And there's some people that like you mentioned earlier. You're like, people say you're a good son. It's like, well, what am I supposed to just leave him? Like I'm a daughter. You know what I mean? Like that's who I am. And I feel like that's how people should. I mean, I'm not, no judgment. Everyone's got their own life and their own realities, and especially, I feel bad for the people whose parents were not good people.
Well, it's funny that you say that, and that's a whole other show.
That's a
whole other show.
We definitely need to have a part two.
Yeah, we do, because one of my friends, Ern, I see you out there, and I saw your text. So his relationship with his father wasn't great. His father was absentee, not around, so on and so forth. But when he got sick and needed somebody, he called him, right. And he stepped in and still did what he felt he should do. But he has a lot of unresolved emotions around it. But that's a whole different show. What I do want to address Stephanie's question, which is great, and which was next on my list, actually, Stephanie. You should host one day. So what coping mechanisms, or what are you doing for self-care to get through this process? How are you're taking care of your people. How are you taking care of you? And I know there's putting that up. Brian, I want to bring you back on this one. I think you've already established that you have some groups that you're part of and that you formed a nonprofit. So I really want to hear your piece on this.
I think the thing that I've learned about self-care, taking care of yourself, because like I said, I've been doing this for 8 or 9 years, and it is a definite roller coaster. And the ways that I'm intentional about taking care of myself, like I said, is support groups. And I recommend everyone join a support group because it is just something about being around other people who understand, who know what you're going through. Like even this conversation and us talking here, we can all relate to what each other is saying. And so I started a support group, and it started off in person. It was support group happy hour. And so we would get together over margaritas and tacos at a Mexican restaurant and hang out, discuss, vent, share resources, all those things. When COVID came, we went virtual. And so we've been meeting virtually literally since 2019. And the group is all around my age, late 30s, early 40s, Black women taking care of their mothers. And so it's kind of a tribe, that we formed, and that we feel really freely talking about getting upset about things that are going on, in our lives. And you have to have those people around you who you can feel like you can say those things to, because a lot of times your friends don't understand. They haven't been here. And so I think it's important to get around people and to find those people in that tribe who kind of understands what you're going through. The other thing I think is being intentional about, like, for me, I can sit after COVID, I have become really comfortable sitting in this house, and as a caregiver with very little help, that's what we do. But I have to make sure that we are getting outside. And at this point, my mom is still at a stage where I can take her with me. So if I want tacos and margaritas, come on. So just realizing that if your loved one is at a stage where they can still get out, take them out, take them with you, do that. And so my main thing is just be intentional, because it's really hard. It's really easy to get into a rut and just be like, this sucks. My life sucks. What am I going to do? I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So hold on. So you all used to go out for tacos and tequila on Tuesdays, you said? Thursdays. And what city are you in again?
Dallas.
All right, hold on. I might be coming for the Dallas game.
I'll be there.
Me, you, retailer moms, we going out for tacos and some tequila.
Right.
She gonna slam some shots.
That's right.
Mama's getting it.
Mom's getting in with Bri Fos that day. Jatan, self-care. What are you doing?
For me, my self-care has been, I believe in, going to therapy. I do. So I've talked to therapists. I journal. I stay active. To speak to something Bartel talked about earlier, change my diet. It's a big thing because dementia is now known as type 3 diabetes, right? So the way that our parents cooked and their parents cooked, we can't cook necessarily like that. Those lovely passed down recipes, cook them only at holidays. Exercise helps tremendously. Like the endorphins, all of that, just staying active and present helps a lot. Stay social. Even when you feel those bouts of depression coming on, you have to find some will within yourself to fight it. You have to pick up, if it's a passion project, pick that up. If it's something you've always wanted to do other than your 9 to 5, and I know it's hard to balance with the time that you have, but if it's sewing, if it's running, whatever it is, writing poetry, painting, do those things. You have to set aside time for yourself as a caregiver. It's most important. If not, you'll start to diminish and decline and fall by the wayside. And given that these things are they're known to be hereditary, you don't want to fall into that. My thing is, every day of my life, I hate to say this, but it's the truth, I am running from dementia.
That's fair.
It's what I tell myself. I'm running, and I'm going to keep running from it. I'm not going to run into it. I just have to believe that too, and I have to stay on top of my health. Go get your checkups.
Definitely do that.
It's important, and we don't do it. We don't do it enough.
We don't.
As a community.
I gotta go get my colonoscopy soon.
You have to do it. And you know what? Here's the thing, and I noticed this because my father is the oldest of 8. I'm sorry.
No, you did.
Okay. Oh, my dad's the oldest of 8. The brother that was just below him, like by 1 year, had dementia, and my father does not have dementia. And the differences are that brother retired and didn't do anything. And I think that if you tell your brain you don't want to use it, your brain will stop working.
If you don't use it, you lose
it. Exactly. My father does crossword puzzles. His highlight of his day is to do his daily crossword puzzle. Like, I have to bring his paper, because if I don't, he's like, "Why, I didn't do my puzzle." Very important. Whatever he's eating is whatever he's eating at this point. Like, he's 96 years old, so he can have McDonald's if he wants it. He can have Taco Bell if he wants it, whatever. I will change his diet, but I don't want to listen, the man deserves some joy, right? But My mother taught me that you need 3 things in life, right?
Okay.
And I try to keep him in all 3. So you need something to do, you need someone to love, and you need something to look forward to. So I keep my father in projects. I keep him looking forward to something, and he has me. So what else does he need?
Yeah.
Okay, say that again, though.
I mean,
Same thing for Lee.
But
Say it
but
again.
see, here's the thing. I'm listening to everyone, and I'm thinking I need some self-care because I'm not sure that I do that. Like I take care of my father every day. Of course, maybe Lee. He needs care every day.
Lee, you do not. You're
Yes.
self-sufficient.
Oh my God, yes he does.
Not in
Lee
this
Lee and my
conversation.
dad are like pretty close.
Oh, I'm
In
not.
terms-
That's a different show.
Don't totally. When your
Different.
fiance becomes the same maintenance as your 96-year-old father, that's a
Tell
whole
him to be
different
on
thing.
his way.
But I mean, I just kind of work and I just don't stop and think about it.
Mhm.
And I'm not really sure if I'm doing myself
That's
disservice
what I
or
do.
not.
No, you
But
probably are.
I might be. But I mean, I'm listening to all these like wonderful things that everyone does for themselves, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should be doing something extra. But I feel like I have a machine going here. And
That's what it is.
it's
It's
been
hard to put
going for
something else
10
in.
years,
Yeah.
so now I'm like, I need to keep the machine.
Yeah.
So
I'm coming to you, Tail. Nicole, I know this is a new thing for you, and you're struggling through it. But have you found some way to have some self-care?
I mean, I don't even know what self-care is right now. I mean, I guess if you call popping gummy self-care, I may be creating an addiction. I don't know. But that's about all I got right now. Because it's just so new and I'm just trying to figure out my way through this and not lose my mind or drive my poor husband crazy. So no, I haven't gotten to the self-care. That's the furthest thing from my mind right now.
I listen. I hear you. You gotta find that space and that place, and whatever it is, I don't care if it's 20, 30 minutes a day where you find some space for you. And I know Mike well, and I know he will let you carve out that time. So I don't know what it is. Nothing wrong with the gummy, by the way. Do your thing. I hope it says she's 23.
yeah.
We'll send you some stuff. But if not, it's a little subplug. But
He's very good at when to know to send me away. If it's just going to sit in the car, he's very good at picking up on the cues or the look on my face. So he's very supportive all the way around, and so I'm fortunate to have him because he'll give me a look like you need to go.
hey, listen, he probably was giving you that look before your mama got there.
That's what we're doing.
Give me that, nigga. Give me that. I love both of you. That's like you shit. Tail, anything you doing or have done?
In the moment, I was doing nothing. I didn't know anything about self-care then or whatever. I was doing what I had to do, and what I wanted to do came if I had time for it. So after the fact is when self-care came in for me. I started going to therapy behind taking care of my father, and I went through some stuff with my job and had to quit my job. That threw me into therapy. So my therapy came after the fact. Had I known what I know now, I would have been in it during, the fact. But again, like you said, it's a machine. You just, once you get to chugging and this is working,
Don't throw a wrench in
yeah,
it.
no, you don't need to add nothing up. This is it right here. I don't want, nope.
It helps to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, and having the support of my wife and everything she helped me with, and it's funny, when my father was taking care of my grandmother, you lived with her, was taking care of her. We were in bed one night. My wife says,
It's almost like it's almost like.
Okay.
hold on, wait a minute.
Look, Oedipus complex.
Wild turkey needed. Okay, go ahead.
She just rolled over one day out the blue and just said to me, if your father ever gets sick, he's welcome to stay with us. Just he wasn't sick at the time. This was years before it happened. So I don't know where that came from. I'm sure she saw him take care of my grandmother, and she figured something may happen, whatever. I was very appreciative of that, and so definitely your family support get your family involved, even if they don't understand. Have them come and sit with the person every now and then. If you need to go to the grocery store or something, and they do it enough, they'll see what you see. Two other things real quick. If you're in this now, number one, know that the state of Illinois, I don't know what states are different, but if you can have the conversation and get control of your parents' money into your name.
Oh my God.
Because if you don't get it out of their name and they have to go into a facility with, was it Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, and the government wants to take, they go back. I think in Illinois, is it 5 years, 3 years or 5 years, they go back. So if you can do now to get all their finances into your name so that in the event, 5 years now, whatever it is, they can't come back and trace and say, oh, you took your parents' money and put it in your,
right.
whatever.
They will try to take your money.
Right. The other thing is I started my job back in the 90s and they offered this thing. I didn't know what it was. All the benefits I could, I get it. I forgot what it's called, but it's aftercare, skilled nursing. I have a policy where I get $203 a day. So in the event I need to go into a nursing home, that's $6,000 a month.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Well, they stopped offering that, but since I had it grandfathered in, they gave me an offer to keep paying for it. So I'm paying for it outside of, I think I pay $40 every quarter or something like that.
That's completely worth it.
Yeah. So I mean, God forbid I'm running from dementia and hopefully they don't catch me, whatever. And so yeah. Another thing on Facebook, there is a African Americans Caring for Elderly Parents group, and there's 133 members there.
Oh.
So if that's something, if you want to get into that.
It's a lot more of us than that.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
Yeah, the financial thing is key. I mean, look, I made my father, do a will. I was like, look, I know this is the, topic, but,
They don't want to talk about
but in his
it.
80s, I'm
God,
like, we are going to do a will because there's complexities and everyone's got their own complexities. You have to do power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure you know all the passwords. Like my father is, to show you how sharp he is at 96, he manages his investment accounts.
Oh, wow.
Like he'll be on the phone with his financial advisors, like, what is going on with this account? Like, but they all know to call me. I mean, I'm on every single one because he knows I'm not going to steal the money. You know what I mean? Like, so, but make sure that you're all in the business. And I, even for my mother, what was useful when she was sick was I had a book. I had a whole notebook that I'd made, which included all of her insurance information. It included her primary care, physicians. It included any medical records I could get my hands on that I downloaded and I put in there, so that any time, like if she had to go in the hospital or something, I had everything at the ready, so that we would have no questions about anything, about her coverage, about what there was for her, and so just make sure that you get that for your parents because it'll be important. And it's an unfortunate thing to have to plan for, but it's better to be prepared than not.
No, absolutely. So I got a whole
you have a whole list.
A whole list, but it's gonna be. I'll do that at the end. I won't.
We're almost at
the
the end.
We're almost at the end. But I do want to. We have been. I know this is a heavy topic for all of us having the conversation, and for people listening. I think most of the folks that are on are probably going through a similar state. So prayers, and I know you've been giving us prayers and blessings and love throughout. Same to you.
Same to you.
Absolutely. We having a little kumbaya, a little session right now, as Veronica said it. So I definitely appreciate you. And listening, as you said, like I'm still a little new into this. So the self-care, and I know people are like, why are you stepping away from the show? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? That's kind of my self-care, right? I'm one of those guys that I have 30 balls in the air because this is how my head works. Like I'm not, I'm just not, I don't know how to operate in a space where I'm not extra busy, like overwhelmingly busy. Dallas is too much.
But sometimes the busy, but you know what?
But the busy is a couple.
It propels you though.
Oh, it does too.
Sometimes the keeping busy, like if you stop too long and think about shit.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I think I'm in a space where I need to stop and think about shit. I think I need to put the balls down for a little bit and figure out some shit about me and how I operate and some other things. So, but having even this, like everything going on with mom, is another 5 balls I put in the air. And I'm just like, yeah, I got this. Boom, 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 boom. And I just want to put everything down for a minute and figure out my own thing. that's kind of how I'm self-caring right now. But we've been a little heavy, and I do want to end with a little advice at the end, but I do want to preface this with, through all of this, all of the bad things we've been through and the struggles we've been with our parents and the role reversal, have there been any light moments, kind of funny, something you want to share that's like, wow, that's crazy, or that could be sad? I found that shit humorous as hell. I really want us to kind of like let that go and be like, there was some moments that were, while I was in this space, I felt a moment of humor release, whatever the case may be. Jatan, I want to start with you on this one.
You know the saying,
I got
once an adult, twice a child. There's that saying. It's true. And I think if you're a caregiver of someone with dementia, you recognize somewhat of their personality when they were younger, their younger self. So I figured out just how fiery my mother was when she was younger. I remember taking her on an outing to get her hair done. And so we're going to the salon, and it's in a high rise, and we're on the elevator, and this guy is like stalling. Now this is pre-COVID, all of that. He's like stalling to get on the elevator, and like my mother got super frustrated with this dude. She sticks her head out the elevator, and she's like, "Hey, come on if you're coming." Like, this dude could have like snapped, could have did anything. I just recognized that she's fiery. She was feisty when she was younger because it comes out. She does these little smirks, and I find that her favorite word is shit. Because she'll say it in her she's like, "Oh, shit." You may not say anything else clear, but shit comes out. So she's a cursor. I love her.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Nicole.
True.
Ooh, now she does give me laughs as we're going looking for adult daycare, which COVID kind of knocked them out. And culture matters. So we went to go visit this adult daycare program, predominantly white. We go on the tour, we sit down, and the intake lady was about to start talking. And before I knew it, my mother's like, "Listen, white lady, it ain't nothing you can say to me. You can't help me. White people can't help me." Got up and walked out. I was like, okay, well, that went well. Then a couple of weeks ago, no, it was 3 weeks ago, I took her to church, which is, unusual because her and Michael go. That's their thing. So we were sitting in church. She goes, "Oh, your dad was supposed to usually takes me to church, but I guess he's mad at me." I'm like, "She think Michael my daddy." What?
That's her husband.
But for Thursday, I took her with me. I was helping a friend set up for her niece's wedding. Another girlfriend was there who has met my mom. And she comes up to me, "I want you to know, your mother's telling everyone her husband is an Omega, and she got to get some of these purple decorations." I just didn't think nothing of it. So we get in the car, about to drive off, and she pulled out these purple linen napkins. I was like, "What?" She goes, "Your dad needed some of these. He wanted these." I was like, "Oh, Jesus." She done took my husband. I was like, "I'm done."
Wait, what?
That's hilarious.
Wait, she done stole your whole husband.
She got your husband.
That is her husband now.
Her man.
Wait.
And he is a cute.
She needs to sleep with your daddy.
It's crazy because it's like, you can't remember me, but you remember him. You remember his fraternity, and you remember his color, but you can't remember me.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. All
That's
right, that's fucking hilarious, by the way. That is hilarious.
My mother used to my mother was very into fashion. She just loved her clothes. And she had lost so much weight when she had cancer, but she was in the advanced stages of cancer that she couldn't fit anything that she had. So I bought her some new clothes. And so we used to laugh and call it her cancer wear. And I was like, "All right, Mom, time to get into your cancer wear." And so she would just shut up, Gina, and she'd start laughing. And it was our funny moment. And then she was still feisty too, to your point, Jatan. Like, there was some woman pushing her in the wheelchair. She goes, that woman almost dropped me. I started to get out of this chair and whoop her ass. And I was like, okay, I want to see how that goes, you know. So
she probably would have took it still.
But you know, it's nice when you see parts of their personality, like they're still there somewhere, and it makes that made me feel good. I'm sure it made you feel good, Jatan, where you could see that she's still in there somewhere.
Yeah. So now that's what's up. Veronica, any humorous tales?
Story about my mom was obsessed with the TV remote, and it became a thing. Like every night before bed, I'm looking everywhere. I'm finding it everywhere. It's in the pillowcase. It's under a mattress. It's in a bag. It's like everywhere. So finally, I'm like, okay, I know what I could do. I had this twine, like nylon twine. So I tied it around the remote, tied the other end around a lamp. It's super long, so it'll stretch all across the room. I'm like, good, I figured it out. My aunt was here. I was like, I figured out how to save the remote, yada, yada, yada. I leave, I come back. My aunt is like, what did you say you did with the remote? I was like, I tied it to the string. Da, da, da. She's like, the remote is not there. I'm like, so I go. She took the remote off the string, which makes sense because if you go in your room, the remote is on the string. You're like, why is the remote on the string? I'm like, okay, fine. So I tape a piece of paper across the back that says, do not remove. Don't remove the string. I tape it all around. Great, wonderful. I come back. She undid the string from the lamp. So she didn't remove it from the remote. She undid it from the lamp. So next weekend, we're taking a road trip. We go to Houston. We drive to Houston, get to Houston. I open her suitcase. There's a remote in her suitcase. And then last but not least, we're getting ready to leave my cousin's house to come back here. She has the remote in her hand. I'm like, that's not yours. Because they had the same remote. It's a DirecTV remote. Same remote. I'm like, that's not yours. Don't take it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So my cousin and I standing there talking, ignoring her, whatever, yada, yada, yada. We get ready to go. We can't find the remote. It's in her purse. Like, she was upset. She thought it was, I really so that was our remote story.
What's hilarious about that is I don't know what the fuck it is with remotes. So I lost. So there was I've lost 2 remotes, and I'm like, where did these remotes go? And I was at my mother's place after I had moved her, and there was these it's like 5 remotes on the windowsill, and 3 of them belong to my house. And I'm like, why are you stealing my remotes? What's wrong with you? So anyway, tell any humorous?
Man, so my father was a player. So when I was getting the calls,
wait. Was he really a air quotes player or was he a player?
Both.
Okay, all right. It depends on when you were talking.
Put it like this: I watched my father in his 70s smack down 2 women at one time.
Okay, brother.
And get 2 numbers.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just saying.
All right.
So when I got the calls, when I got the calls from the home that said, "Mr. Williams, your father is grabbing tits and yeah, some stuff," right? Yeah. So
down by the waist.
I was like, "That mean he's still here?" But then I was like, okay. I had to go ahead and talk with him, and hey, man, you can't, blah blah blah. And yeah, he was steadily doing that. And as funny is, you can't question because you want them to take care of your father. And the women kind of knew, he's just a dirty old man. He don't mean nothing by it. Blah, blah. Yeah. So and I look, man, you like it here? You want to stay here? You gotta stop doing that, And then 2 weeks later, I get a call, whatever. So, man, there's been so many funny things, and the thing is, they're funny to a point. You think about it deep enough, it's really sad, But it's
take the joy wherever you can.
Yeah, take the joy where you can get it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Real fast, mine. So my mother would. So mothers couldn't handle finance, just couldn't do it. It was she swore everything was on auto pay. And I come to find out what a goddamn thing on auto pay. So anyway, neither here nor there. I took over and I'm dealing with the money or whatever. And she calls me one day and she's like, It's like, you in my money and this, that, and my money, and you in my money, and I don't need you in my money. I got this money, and you in my money. And hangs up on me. I'm like, all right, whatever. 5 minutes, he's like, so how much is in my account? Oh, you don't want me in your money, though. Why you asking? You just told me 5 seconds ago. Because he still had access to the account. It's like, you don't know how to get in your account. Oh, now you want to know your money. She's like, shut up, boy. How much in my account? But
that's cute.
That's for sure. But I'm not even going to dive into that because that whole money thing is, again, another show. Again, another show. So,
advice.
Hold on. My dang, that's all right. He listens to TV, radio, cell phone, speaker. I've always told him we're going to get him headphones, but we yet. So I said, yeah, I hear you. I ain't got to that hearing gone yet. That's a whole other piece.
My father's a musician.
So on finances, early on, I caught my father. I asked for his wallet. This fool had $2,500 worth of cash in his wallet.
He was pimping.
Don't get me started on that.
Pimping.
Before I moved him, I'll go to this place and it'd be like strange women in there. Like,
the sound of moaning. Shit, that's a whole. We gonna talk about that one. Go ahead.
That's a whole different show.
Yeah.
We did part 2.
Oh, we need three. We need 3 parts.
Yeah, so that's when I'd take his money and be like, what you got to pay $500 for?
You never know.
I love that. Though.
All right, give me that money. Yeah, we taking that right there. Yeah. So, and all the women at the bank knew him too. When I first went, I didn't have POA, and I went to the bank to try to take over stuff, and they told me no, and that was an emotional breakdown moment for me because I was like, I'm his son, and it was funny because we were sitting there, and he was cool until the lady had to ask him, Mr. Williams, do you mind if your son takes? And he says, well, my money, his money. He wouldn't directly say, yeah, and it was like, okay, I got to come back with POA.
Yeah,
so
whole other, that's a whole other piece. So we'll touch over, but I don't want to. It's hard for me to cut this conversation out. We could do this all night, but I do want to give everybody a couple of minutes each. Last thoughts, any advice, anything you wanna touch on before we close out. Veronica, I want to start with you.
Sure. So I just wanted to make 3 points, and it's kind of going back over some of the things we've already said. So one of them is being intentional about self-care and taking care of yourself and whatever that means to you. It does not have to be a trip to Jamaica. It might be a trip to Costco. Like whatever self-care means to you, just making sure that you're being intentional about it. The other one is to enjoy the moments because this is a progressive disease. Whatever stage they're in right now is likely the best that they're going to be. So take the pictures, take the videos, make the memories. If they're still able to, take them out, do things, with your loved one that you can. And even if it's at the house, take pictures, make memories. And then the last one is journaling. And I think Jatan mentioned that because these stories that we're telling, we might not remember these 10, 15 years from now, ourselves. And so like in journaling is therapeutic, to the point of even talking about the good things, the bad things, and just everything that's going on so that you can look back on this time in your life and just, remember them, remember how they were, remember the stories, the funny times, the good times. And so I just want to say that. I also want to give a plug for my nonprofit. It's called Dementia Care Warriors, and it's at Care Warriors on Facebook and Instagram. And I want to invite Nicole, Jatan, anyone else, send me a message online. I'll send you the information about our support group. We meet virtually on Thursdays, the first Thursday of each month at 9 p.m. So that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So real quick, Veronica, can you repeat that real fast? So folks out there, because you went through it kind of fast. I think some people.
So it's called Dementia Care Warriors. The website is dementiacarewarriors.org. And on Facebook and Instagram, it's just at Care Warriors.
Thank you, Veronica. Appreciate that. Jatan.
Yes. Takeaways. What can I say? I think Veronica really summed that up very well. You have to take care of yourself first as a caregiver before you can take care of someone else. That is key. It's essential. Find your passion project, whatever it is. I know I've said this earlier. You can have a 9 to 5 or whatever. But take that 30 minutes, hour, just to yourself. If it's a walk down the block, whatever, do whatever makes you feel good and brings you some sense of happiness or peace just for that moment. I can say this: once you fall into a routine, your routine will stick with you, and you will get a little more lightness to yourself. It does seem all heavy at first, but once you get into the swing of things and even utilize whatever resources you have, if it's friends that are willing to sit with your loved one, family members, whomever, sometimes just take it and take time for yourself.
Thank you, cuz. Appreciate that. Nicole, any last thoughts, words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, get long-term care health insurance for yourself now, because dementia is a very expensive disease, and insurance does not cover that. So definitely get long-term care health insurance. Two, be okay in everything you're feeling: the anger, the guilt, the sadness, the happiness, the joy. You are allowed, you're human, and it comes at you fast. So your emotions are going to be all over the place, and it's okay. Um, don't cuss people out. I would tell you it's just not worth it, because they do not have an AARP section in jail. And so none of us wants to go to jail at this age. And just take it hour by hour.
I hear you, Nicole. But you were cussing people out before all this. I don't know. We're gonna have that conversation offline.
Yeah,
that was your thing.
yeah, it was. But now I got some heat behind, real heat behind it. I might do some damage.
I got
That's
you.
right.
I got you. Thank you for that. BTL, any first of all, I think Alicia. Hey Alicia. Alicia, excuse me. God damn it. Let me not ghetto your name up. Alicia. Asked what that website was again. Hope she's still listening. I'll put it in the chat.
African Americans Caring for Elderly Parents. I think it's called. Yep.
African Americans
Caring for Elderly Parents.
For elderly parents.
Yep.
And the Facebook page was.
That is the Facebook page.
Facebook page. That's the group.
That's the group, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
All right, B. Any last thoughts?
Like I said, I didn't do self-care when I was in it because I was just in it and going. But if you can, you got the time, get in therapy now. If you're in the midst of it, do therapy. It could be once every 2 weeks, once a month, because you will, there's things you don't know that's going on with you that you'll find out that's going on with you. And you'll feel like you don't need this, but it'll bring some stuff out and it might help. You know, I'm sure it probably would have helped me during the time. Other than that, know that you're doing what you can do and what you're supposed to do. You know, now we're in the age of internet and all of this stuff. You know, people did this back before there was an internet, and they did what they knew instinctively what to do. You've got more resources, but again, whatever you're doing is what is best for you and what is best for your parent, and know that that's all that's expected of you. Anything more than that is extra credit. So that's all I got.
Love that. G?
Oh, I gave my advice about like getting all the finances and just kind of, you know, all
absolutely.
That stuff. So.
All right. Let me close it out. I do want to. One of my frat brothers posted this in my group, and I do want to touch on this really fast. He got some great information. He didn't. Justin, you didn't do this shit, by the way. I'm just gonna give you minimal credit. You took this to somebody else. But anyway, make sure all bank accounts have direct beneficiaries, meaning you. All right. The beneficiaries need only go to the bank with your death certificate and the ID of their own. That's it after the fact. Do that beforehand, right? Make sure you're the beneficiary on all accounts. Makes things simpler down the road.
If they're military, make sure you got their DD-214.
Ooh, see, there you go. Some other stuff I didn't know.
Yep.
Transfer on death deed if they own a home. Good to know. Living will. Make that happen. Durable power of attorney.
Yes.
Please, please, please make sure that happens.
Not just for finance, but for healthcare.
Medical
Healthcare as well. That's even next. A power of attorney for healthcare. Do that, please.
Yes.
So that you can have, and make sure that you've had this conversation with your people, right? Your parents, so that you know what their wishes and their wants are, but have the authority to make that decision at the end of the day. Last will and testament. Erases a lot of trash at the end of the day, right? Funeral planning and declaration. We all
Not fun, but
not a fun thing to have a conversation about, but we all want to have
It's
our
a
last rites and everything done in a certain way. Make sure that's put in paper. Excuse me. If you have all that done, you can avoid probate, which is what you
you
want
don't
to
want
avoid. Probate. I've been through that with my grandparents. Probate is a motherfucker.
And real quick to that point, it's morbid to think about the progression of your parents when they're gonna die, whether it be next week or 5 years from now. Buying a plot beforehand is much cheaper, and somehow my parents and grandparents knew that because they had multiple plots. My grandmother took my aunt's plot, and they had and I remembered from a conversation that there was one plot left when my father died. And I went to the funeral home. They buried all in Oakwood over on 63rd in Cottage. And sure enough, there was one plot left for the family, for him. And he had gotten that from either his sister or his brother-in-law, one or the other. So that's something, that's hard to think of. Let me go even for yourself, let me go buy my plots. Now, my grandparents did that. They bought their plots before they died.
Right.
Who can do that, But the cost is exponentially cheaper if you do that. But if you got that, wherewithal to do that.
If you're living, you're
I don't
dying.
think I do.
If you're living, you're dying. That's just a fact. That's
we
just,
have to.
it is
It's
what
gonna
it is.
It's gonna happen.
I have one more thing to add,
Come on, Nicole.
and it's the power of mental health, because power of health does not cover mental health. So you need two power of attorney for health and mental health.
No, you're right. You're right. Couple of other quick things. Like I said, make sure you have all the bank accounts. She didn't touch on that. Make sure you got all the bank accounts numbers and all that good stuff. And make sure you have all the titles, vehicles, campers, cars, whatever the case may be, passwords, all of it. Make sure you got all that. I want to thank everybody for this frank and earnest and candid conversation and being open and vulnerable. It's a tough space to be in for everybody on the panel and everybody listening, even for your host and hostess. So thank you all for doing it. Appreciate you all listening and going over with us. We will have a part 2 of this. I guarantee it. Next week, you will have, for the next couple of weeks, you'll have Chantel and Gina back in the studio.
I won't be here next week. I thought you would.
Oh, I'm out of town next week.
Okay, we'll be Chantel.
So Chantel and somebody will be in here next week.
I'll be in
probably back on some fuck shit. So appreciate you.
I'll come back for that.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm ready for fuck shit. Appreciate you, love you, thank you. It is on podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my guests. Love you.
Y'all are doing beautiful work.